All right, everybody, welcome to another Esoterica live stream. I love doing these. I didn't do a lot of them in the fall last fall for whatever reason. I think I was just focusing on getting content out the door and just pushing a lot of content out around the time of Halloween. And so I'm really glad to settle back into the pattern of being able to do 3 weeks or so of content creation and then really jump back into these live streams. So I love hanging out with you guys and getting some questions and talking with this wonderful, amazing folks that come hang out on these live streams, and also just fans of the channel. I just so grateful for all of y'all. You guys are amazing, and I appreciate your support in the channel, just hanging out. But this is the last live stream of 2023, so I think I want to talk a little bit about sort of the state of the channel and where things are going, and some ideas I have for the future, but also just sort of kind of year in review. Hi, Marco. Marco Visconti is in the chat. Yeah, and absolutely, I'm really glad everyone's. Hope that folks are having a great holiday season, whatever holidays those are, solstice and Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and all the things. So, ever how you do it or don't do it, I hope you're enjoying it. Um, but yeah, well, I guess what to say about this year in sort of esoteric content creation is there's just been a ton going on this year. Hi, VIK. Thank you for the super chat. What's up? The live stream is what's up. It's been a really great year. I mean, again, I just can't thank my life enough and thank y'all enough that I get to do this job, that I get to take what is my academic training and which I don't get to do in the university system. I still teach classes, but they're just sort of low level, political philosophy classes or whatever. But I'm so absolutely thankful that I get to take this knowledge and learn with all of you. That is extremely just like lucky, and I'm very glad and very happy and very extremely thankful that I get to learn with all you fine people, and learning together, building a community of learning around topics in esotericism has just been a thing I've always wanted to do, and I'm very grateful and thankful that I have the opportunity to do it. Also, if my energy levels are a little lower than normal, the reason why is I have some stomach bug kind of thing. I was like kind of sick earlier and not feeling super great, so I'm feeling a bit better now. But if my energy levels are not like having fun, I'm like maybe a little low level. That's the reason why. But the first thing I'll say again is just to express gratitude around getting to do the job that I do. I'm very lucky that I have the job of Esoterica, and I'm very lucky that I get to do it. And I also take the responsibility very seriously. And I hope that I do well by all of y'all as best I can. So in the year, we've done a ton of content creation. I was looking back over the range of content going back, and I will say, and again, I don't want to toot my own horn or whatever, because it's not really my horn to toot. I'm just the presenter of the information. Ultimately, it's the geniuses that compose this material that really shine. I'm just a conduit by which their genius gets to get on the internet, I suppose. But I really am proud of the content we've created this year. Everything from theurgy to a lot of philosophy stuff, even fun stuff like ghosts and vampires. Just some pretty hard hitting philosophy, folks. I mean, I love those episodes on Duns Scotus. I really love that episode on Parmenides. Those were just absolutely some of the most fun episodes for me to make, because I get to get in the wheelhouse of philosophy, and philosophy is absolutely where I feel the strongest in some sense. I really am able to do. I think I can do philosophy pretty okay. I think I'm a pretty good philosopher, and so when I get to present ingenious philosophy stuff like Parmenides or Duns Scotus, it always just makes me incredibly happy. Speaking of Duns Scotus, by the way, I still have a volume of Duns Scotus for sale over at my Ex Libris, my rare book business, I suppose. So if anyone wants any 16th century Duns Scotus, um, feel free to look it up. But yeah, it's been really great. And I see Ray Oshima asking for some more Kabbalah material. Yes, I haven't. I've not done a lot of Kabbalah material in the past little while. I don't know why that is exactly, but more Kabbalah material is coming. In fact, I'm going to be doing an episode on the rival school of Lurianic Kabbalah that basically no one talks about. We always talk about Lurianic Kabbalah coming from coming from the direction of Chaim Vital. And so Chaim Vital really is the guy that really we all latch onto when you talk about Tzimtzum or any of the ideas of Kabbalah. You're getting it through Chaim Vital. There's another school of Lurianic Kabbalah that actually existed earlier, published earlier, was widely disseminated in Italy, and that's the Kabbalah of Sarug. And Israel Sarug, Sarugian Kabbalah, is an absolutely interesting and important part of Kabbalistic history that doesn't get a lot of attention. And so I'll be doing an episode pretty soon on Sarugian Kabbalah, which is a rival school of Lurianic Kabbalah over and against Chaim Vital, which I'm not a big fan of Chaim Vital, frankly. I'm not a big fan of the Arizal, more of a Cordovero kind of guy. But yes, more Kabbalah coming. Sarugian Kabbalah is on the agenda. Thank you, Niels, for that. The great donation for the super sticker. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. But what else has been going on the channel? I mean, I'm just looking through here. You know, this is a great episode. I really had fun with the episode on the Library of Alexandria. Again, this is a place where I really love to get into the history of these things and show, like, look, the Library of Alexandria is really important, but it's really not important for a lot of the reasons that we say it is, and often hyping it up in a way actually diminishes its importance. And we need to really think through the Library of Alexandria with a bit more, a little bit less glow and a little bit more archaeology and history. So it was really fun to be able to get the Library of Alexandria episode. What else? We got a lot of great stuff on sort of demonology. I finally got an episode on the exorcism to necromancy pipeline, which is an episode I've been wanting to do for quite some time. I finally got that one worked out, which was a lot of fun. Finally got into spiritual alchemy. I know that that people really, I don't know. There's a lot of debate and a lot of stuff about spiritual alchemy, but I'm really glad to be able to get into what we actually can say historically about actual, real, historical spiritual alchemy. They're beginning in the late 17th century, or late 16th century rather. So, and again, of course, there's Zosimo Stephanopoulos and those kinds of things, but I think, as I showed in those episodes, a lot of those ideas did not make it out of the sort of Baghdad Brethren of Purity circles, and at least they didn't make it into Europe so much. Yeah, we got some episodes on Stoicism. I got that huge episode on Yahweh. I'm going to be doing a follow-up on that one. Hi, Angela. Folks, my colleague and friend Angela, Dr. Angela Puka, you absolutely have to go check her channel out if you're a fan of Esoterica. I linked her in the community post, the most recent community post, and I really folks should check that out. Oh yeah, the Mishima. Again, the kind of things that I can get away with doing. Again, this is the great thing about YouTube, is I can basically, like, I want to do an episode about Mishima and mysticism, and I can just do that. I can just straight up make an episode about Mishima and mysticism. I really like making that episode. I'm impressed by Mishima. I also think he was a fascist turd, and so, like, I'm not like a fan of him in some level, but I also think he was a genius. Just like Heidegger. Heidegger was also like a fascist turd. And yeah, he can be a fascist turd and he can be a genius. And we actually have to handle both of those things. And so it was really great to be able to turn to I think, some of the more interesting and frankly extreme ideas to be found in the thoughts of Yukio Mishima, which was, again, a lot of fun. But anyway, we did this great episode on the Bornless ritual, where it was great to be able to hang out with practitioners and do work there. And one of the things I love about being able to do on this channel is I love being able to hang out with ritual practitioners and learn with them and from them. You know, I get folks like Marco Visconti's in the chat, and Aaron Leach, and other folks who have some expertise in the world of practice. And I'm always open to that. I think that people often sometimes say about Esoterica that I'm like an armchair occultist. Well, I'm not an occultist at all, so I can't be an armchair one. And the idea that I don't take practitioner point of view seriously, I would challenge that and say I take practitioner point of views extremely seriously, because I literally have them look at scripts and bring them on to share their experience, which, again, I will say very publicly and very clearly here, is of the utmost importance in studying esotericism. It is extremely important to get the practitioner point of view, and I'm glad and I'm very excited when I'm able to do that. It's really, really, really important to me. Tomer, owe you a message, Tomer. I'm sorry, I've not gotten back to you. Yes, I would like to do an episode. I just don't know how. I mean, one, let me just say this: I love Gersonides. He's my man. He's my actual favorite medieval Jewish philosopher, hands down. Gersonides is absolutely my favorite, and I would like to do an episode on Gersonides, but I just don't know what exactly I would do. Maybe his astrology stuff a little bit. Maybe that's always done by Ibn Ezra so much better. I don't know what I would cover, but I do love Gersonides. I think he was one of the most radical philosophers of the Middle Ages. I mean, he makes the rationalism of Maimonides look positively spooky by comparison. And so I really do love, and Ibn Caspi too, a lot of those guys. But I don't know. I don't know when and how I'd fit them in, but also I can just do whatever I want. And so maybe I just want to do an episode about Gersonides and Milcham Hashem, and I can just do it because it's my channel, and I can always make an episode about Milchamat Hashem. I do love also it's Milchamat Al Hashem, that people said it was such an assault against God that you shouldn't call it the wars of the Lord. You should call it the war upon the Lord. I always love that dig at Gersonides. Let's see some other things, and I've seen some other questions. I'm going to try to get to those in just a minute. Yes, I do want to do some episodes on the Fama Fraternitatis and Rosicrucianism. I will also say that Dr. Angela Puka has done great episodes on Rosicrucianism. You can go check those out. But I will eventually be getting to the Fama and to the Rosicrucian manifestos, to the Illuminati. I want to do an episode on the Illuminati. And so yes, they will get to them eventually. They're on the list, absolutely. So thank you for that. Thank you. Old World Hamster Wheels. I appreciate your support and appreciate you buying some merch over at the channel. I hope folks like the designs that I'm coming up with for the merch. It sells pretty well. What I'm trying to do is kind of create esoteric shirts basically and other stuff that have imagery that you can't find anywhere else. I really love being able to go to some of these extremely rare places in history where you can get 1,000 shirts that have, I don't know, a pentagram or something on them. But there's not a lot of places where you can go to get the earliest known Seal of Solomon on a shirt, or you can get an example of a Gnostic cross that we actually have from an actual Gnostic manuscript. So I hope that the merch is not just sort of like, this Esoterica is shilling stuff to make a buck. I hope that it, one, supports the channel, and I'm glad that folks decide to do that. But also I hope that it is interesting, cool shirts, and you want to wear them, and you want to go to a metal show or whatever, Enya concert, and wear your Toth shirt or whatever. Is Enya still doing? And is Enya still doing stuff anymore? I don't know. Singing in her made-up elf language. Thank you, Mark, for the super sticker. Can I make a non-esoteric Spinoza shirt? I was thinking about making a Spinoza shirt that features his seal. His famous Sub Rosa. I have a shirt actually that has it on there, but I was thinking about making an Esoterica shirt of his seal, and I think his seal is really cool. It has the rose, which means secrecy, and below it says Caute, and be careful. It's a great seal. So if I ever do one on if I make a shirt of Spinoza, it would be basically reproducing his really cool seal. But yeah, I see folks talking about the accusations that I'm not a practitioner or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I'm an academic, and again, like, we all have limits, we all have our biases, we all none of us can see past our own nose. And the first part of solving that is by admitting you don't see past your own nose, and then working in a community of people who can check you on things and add things and bring practitioners onto the channel to have their experience. And so it's such an interesting kind of accusation that I'm an armchair occultist, which I never claimed to be one, and also that I don't take practitioners seriously, which is also very strange considering that I do my very best to platform them, when it makes sense in the channel, and I'm always open to practitioner points of view. And also, being a practitioner doesn't make you not being able to be an academic, and being an academic can also make you a better practitioner. There's this weird term that gets bandied about in sort of academic esotericism of scholar practitioner. It's a term that I know that Angela dislikes greatly, and I think also is bigoted, frankly. There's the idea that scholar practitioners either have a uniquely better ability to understand the material academically, or they're compromised and they can't be trusted. And that both of those positions are bigoted. They're stupid to me. What is true is that you can be a great practitioner of whatever religion and study religion academically just fine. And being a being a scholar, and again, you can also be a scholar without being an academic. I look at the work of many occultists. You can see the work of occultists on my shelf, modern occultists. They're scholarly. I mean, if you've ever read, I guess, Aaron Leach's book on Enochian magic and the Enochian system, he's doing the scholarly work that, frankly, academics are not doing, and his work is very reliable, in my opinion. And so, you can be a scholar without being an academic. You can be a practitioner without being a scholar. You can. There's all kinds of ways of doing this, but we would never turn our eye at a Jesuit in a frock coat and think, "Oh, he's a scholar practitioner. We can't trust what he says," or "Oh, he's a scholar practitioner. That Jesuit, he really knows what the nature of religion." It's an accusation that would never get leveled against a Catholic. It would never get leveled against a Jewish person studying Kabbalah, and yet it does get leveled at esoteric religious people. And I think it's frankly bigoted, and I deeply dislike I totally dislike that the terminology. I think it's either redundant or nonsense. Maybe both. Maybe both. Um, let's see. You've been knocking a lot of spiritual doors, haven't you? Would you welcome spirituality reaching back to you? Sure. Sure. I mean, again, I absolutely say this. I'm a skeptic I'm a materialist. I'm the most boring kind of skeptic. And I make it very clear what my what my metaphysics is. I'm a dialectical materialist. And for me, the question is always, that's just what I happen to believe based on my life experience and based on what I've experienced so far. The idea that I'm right is highly unlikely. That's what I believe, and that's what I have evidence for in my life that makes the most sense to me. But the bias that I'm right, that's a bridge too far. I'm skeptical, but I'm also skeptical of my own materialism, and I'm perfectly willing to accept the possibility that other kinds of realities could be real and could make an imposition upon me. And if they did, I would be open to that. Now, of course, I would maybe think maybe I'm having a hallucination, or maybe I take some great drugs or whatever. And not that those things overlap, frankly, but I'm absolutely not. I do my best not to be biased in my own beliefs, because my own beliefs are just informed by what is at the limit of my own nose. And I'm absolutely not committed to saying I'm right. I'm committed to saying this is where I land, and I'll defend where I land, and I'll explain why I land where I land. But the pretension of being right is I don't know. That's a bizarre position to take. So I think you can believe in what you believe and have good reasons to do it and argue for it. But to extend that and say I have absolute, I have veridical knowledge of the absolute, a la Hegel or something, that's a bridge too far. I can't do it. I can't do it. And again, also I've met people who are materialists and who have had experiences of mysticism and magic and religion, and that's transformed their beliefs. And I laud them from that. I admire them for that. They've taken experiences that they cannot shake, and they've said, "Look, I used to believe this. I've had this deeply fundamental experience that does not jive with what I used to believe, and I have to, if I'm going to be intellectually honest, I need to move past that." And I have absolutely nothing but respect for folks that do that. I'm nothing but respect. I think that's a sign of intellectual and spiritual growth. The willingness to say, "I had a deeply held belief, I had an experience that disrupted it, and now I need to change." We should do nothing other than laud people who do that. We should laud them. They're not like, "Oh, you betrayed materialism." Come on, that's just patently stupid. All right, let me grab some questions up here, folks. And again, I'm sorry if I don't get to all of them. Genghis Galahad, great fan of the channel. I appreciate you, Genghis. Great Paracelsus question: did he actually have intellectual beef or discord with Ibn Sina? Yeah, well, he has. So folks know famously he burned the canon of medicine when he was teaching in Basel, I think, and it's where he famously publicly burned the canon of medicine, which is a huge book, by the way. In most of the times, it's 5 volumes, big volumes in folio. I mean, he spent a lot of money for that stunt, assuming that he bought those books himself. The canon of medicine, even to this day, if you buy an antiquarian copy from the 17th century, it is a substantial text, very big. Must have been quite a pyre. Don't burn books. At any rate, I think he's burning Avicenna, but he's burning Avicenna because Avicenna does represent to him the doctrinal, dogmatic belief in Aristotelianism and Galenism, and Paracelsus as he sees Avicenna, Ibn Sina, as the coalition of Aristotelianism and Galenism, and insofar as Ibn Sina is sort of the systematizer of those two philosophies, then sure, he represents the dogmatic medical beliefs and alchemical beliefs of his day, and that's certainly what Paracelsus wanted to protest against, and rightly so. Even if he was wrong, and Paracelsus I think was wrong, he was certainly wrong for the right reasons. And I praise Paracelsus for that. It takes a great deal of daring to radically think outside the box and publicly break decisively with thousands of years of tradition. Tradition's a hell of a drug, and to publicly break with it and say, no, we're going to carve a whole new path. So I deeply admire Paracelsus for that, even if I think he ultimately wasn't right. Speaking of which, I will be doing another episode on Paracelsus's other main text, the Paramirum. I did an episode on the Paragranum, and we'll be looking at the Paramirum sometime in the new year. So more Paracelsus to come. Speaking of which, I could show you let me see if I can grab it. Hold on. Hold on. I'll show you guys this. I'll be right back. Speaking of Paracelsus, so I can get in here without knocking everything over. Get my earphones back in. If you're curious what the complete works of Paracelsus, at least the Latin complete works of Paracelsus, look like, they look like this. This is, and I need to scoot back a little bit because this thing is a beast. This is the complete works of Paracelsus in the Latin edition, 1658, I believe. 1658. That is the complete works of Paracelsus in Latin. You get a sense of how huge this is. I mean, if you want to compare it to, here's a little volume of Duns Scotus, Paracelsus. Now, if you think that it's just printed all big, it's absolutely not. This is printed in 10-point font. This book is positively enormous. Usually it's bound in 2 volumes, but the one that I managed to get is actually just one gigantor volume. But this is the complete works of Paracelsus in the 1658 Latin translation, which is not always totally reliable. You should always be checking the Latin translation of Paracelsus over and against the original German. But this is how almost everybody in the 17th century would have gotten their Paracelsus. If you didn't read German, you'd have got this edition. This is the edition that Newton had. This is the edition that people like Dee would have gotten. Or not Dee, it's a little earlier, but anybody working in alchemy in the 17th century, this is what you would have picked up for Paracelsus. That would be the main thing that you would have gotten. Put this beast mode book over there. Thing weighs more than me. But that is a little show and tell when it comes to Paracelsus. But yes, more Paracelsus coming soon. All right, let me scroll down here. Justin will appear with the Spirit of Spinoza. I'd like to. I wish me and Baruch could hang out. I'd love to pick his brain, just chat with him for a little while. I have about 10 questions I'd love to ask him. He and I can maybe drink some Yenaver and talk about being, which is what I want to do. I'm just getting some other questions and see. And if you guys can just put your the big question in uppercase, it helps me to see them. And obviously, well, there's a lot of other things here. Ionic life. Year of the Dragon is coming. Sure. I have no idea what that means, but yeah, if spiritual reality wants to knock on my door, I'll gladly answer. Thoughts on AI-based English translation of the Hermetica? That sounds like a really bad idea. Mostly because AI is crap at a lot of translations, and the Hermetica themselves are badly corrupt. So the Hermetic texts are just not really greatly edited. However, there is a new English translation coming out that is going to, I think, titanically change how we think about the Corpus Hermeticum. And so that is coming, but trust AI just as far as I can throw it. AI is like the C student of intelligence. Plot twist. Dr. Sledge is playing innocent and secretly one of the most powerful practitioners on Earth. Yeah, I wish. If I were that powerful, I wouldn't be doing YouTube, folks. I'd be like making the world a better place and like stopping kids from dying and curing cancer, and I don't know. I would not be like I would not be on YouTube. I'd be like secretly making diseases go away, and I'd make all the nuclear weapons and all the chemical and biological weapons and every bit of gunpowder in this world cease to function. Every bit of high explosive would basically stop if it were aimed at another human being. If I had power, I would do things like that, but I don't have any powers. I'm just a lowly guy on the fence of things. All right, let's see. Wish I had that kind of power. I would definitely be using it to help people, but I do not. Let me scroll down and get some other questions and stuff. Yeah, I'd like to do an episode on Saint Cyprian. It's a little late for the channel, but it's very important, especially in like Afro-Caribbean magic. Ditto with the later books of Moses, the sixth and seventh books of Moses, or the seventh and eighth. I can never get them straight, but yeah, those are also really important, especially for the development of Afro-Caribbean and African American esotericism, which is very important, obviously. Yeah. Yeah, Niels. I really enjoy reading and listening to a lot of ideas, even if they don't connect with me. Yeah, I feel the same way. People sometimes ask me, like, how can you spend so much time reading books and philosophies that don't agree with you? And I'm like, that's healthy. Reading things that don't agree with you, reading things that contradict your beliefs, that's a sign of intellectual health. If you're always reading things that just agree with you, you're in an intellectual echo chamber, and I don't think that's currently terribly healthy intellectually. So I'm always very happy to be reading things that I deeply disagree with, um, and because there are jewels to be gained from that, and it only makes my beliefs not stronger, but it means that I have to actually do the hard work of making sure I do believe the things that I do. And so the best way of doing that is spending a lot of time reading things you don't agree with and not judging them, not presenting them in some like whack way that like straw mans them. One of the things I really try on this channel to do is present ideas, no matter how much I disagree with them, with the same sympathy I could muster for ideas that I do. And whether it's Enochian magic or Gnosticism, Gnosticism being a belief system I deeply dislike, frankly. But it doesn't really matter if I dislike it. What matters is I'm sympathetically and I'm steel manning it the best I can because it deserves it, and it's not my place to sneak in, you know, criticisms and stuff like that. My own personal criticisms, at least. So I would highly encourage you read a whole bunch of stuff that you do not agree with. That is intellectually very, very healthy. Yeah, I have all kinds of books around here. Um, it's a little fun one here. This will be on the next Esoterica book release when from the some in the spring sometime. It's a copy of Nostradamus, which is really nice. It's a great little depiction of Nostradamus there. So this one will be in the next catalog. Another great book that I picked up recently that's going into my collection. Doesn't look like much, but if you were to zoom in on it, you'll see that it's very boring, at least at first. It's just a bunch of a bunch of names and books. But if you were to look a little closer, you would realize, right? If you can, I don't know if you can read the Latin there. It is the Index Prohibitorum. So this is the list of books that were banned by the Catholic Church, at least. And this is what, from Benedict? I shouldn't say Benedict. There's 50,000 Benedicts, aren't there? This is from Benedict the 14th. So this was printed in 1764. So pretty 1764 is pretty late in the history of the index. So this is all the books that were banned by the Catholic Church. Agrippa and stuff is in here. Paracelsus is in here. Grotius is in here. Hobbes and stuff is in here. So there's all kinds of cool. Spinoza's in here. Kant has not yet got in here, but he will be in eventually. Kant does end up on the Index Prohibitorum. So it's just a neat book. It's like if I want to make an esoteric episode, I just crack this open and I make something. It's like all the books that are banned by the church in the 18th century. So it's an easy buy in terms of or an easy access to a great book to be able to learn to do those. Was Hegel a Hermeticist? No, definitely not. Glenn McGee's book is great. Certainly Hegel is influenced by Hermetic thought, but but Hegel really clearly says that occultism and hermeticism are just one moment of the dialectic, and you have to move in the direction of the absolute, and they get sublated. So, yeah, he's influenced by people like Jakob Böhme. In fact, he calls Jakob Böhme the first German philosopher, but that's also a good indicator of where he thinks philosophy has to go. Jakob Böhme is important. He's the first German philosopher. But of course, who's the last German philosopher? Well, you know who it is. It's Hegel. And so yes, he's influenced by these ideas, but he thinks they have to be sublated in the process of the historical dialectic. So so yeah, influenced, and I think McGee overstates how influenced Hegel was. I don't think he's I don't think he's I don't think he's that influenced as much as McGee makes. I read that book recently when I was in Mexico. Not recently, a few years ago when I was in Mexico. And I remember really loving that book, Hegel and the Hermetic Tradition, when I read it in undergrad, and really, really being impressed by it. And it's still a great book. It's a fantastic book. But I have read it since, and I'll need to do an episode about it. But I came away this time reading it not feeling that it was as strong as I remember it being. Yes, I do have plans to discuss Burma. In fact, I just did an episode on Jakob Burma just recently, specifically Jakob Burma's influence in spiritual alchemy. So, yep, yeah, I already made some Jakob Burma stuff. Any plans to cover 1800s treasure digging? Yes, I would like to cover that. And this is always the question I get about Joseph Smith and the early Church of the Latter-day Saints. Yes, I do intend to cover Joseph Smith. There's the huge book about Joseph Smith that I have just right over there. So yes, I will be covering American treasure hunting and specifically covering the role of esotericism in the early LDS movement, which I went to Utah just this last year and had an absolutely wonderful time in Salt Lake City, getting to meet LDS folks and talking to LDS elders and missionaries, and got to go to some of the libraries and see some of the original pictures of the original sheets of the Book of Mormon, and just had great time hanging out with Latter-day Saints folks. It was really, really fun. They were such kind people. Of course, every church has problems. They have their own problems. And of course, I got to meet a great friend of mine, Jorge, was a longtime friend of the channel. So, but yeah, definitely going to get to some LDS stuff and some of this. Yeah, we're getting to the real questions. What's your max bench? I don't know, because I don't ever have a spotter, so I've never pushed it that hard. My typical bench is like two 45s and a 225. So whatever that is with the bar, which is 40, it's like 200 and change. Like, I forget. That's my and that's like 3 reps of 8. So I don't know. I don't know what my max bench is. I've never actually tried to like warm up and actually hit a max bench, but that's what I rep, 3 reps of 8. I'm not a huge lifter. I'm not a power lifter. But I like to lift. It's good for me. I like being stronger than I was. I like getting stronger. I like the way I feel. It's good for my brain. I like challenging myself. I love lifting. It's fantastic. I'd recommend it to anybody. Do you find any visual description of angels interesting? Yeah, I mean the depiction of them in art is fantastic. The depiction of them in the book of Ezekiel, as much as those are angels, whatever Ophanim and stuff are. But yeah, it's fascinating, weird stuff. I do like that as you get through into later Kabbalah, they get described less and less. So, but yeah, I think angels are pretty typically interesting. All right. Spiritual Navigatrix. Thank you so much for your videos about Gnosticism and the diversity of early Christianity in the Hebrew Bible. Oh, you're senior minister. Thank you for serving your community. As a partner to clergy myself, I know what kind of work you put in. So let me just acknowledge how important your work is for your community. And even if you don't always feel it, know that you're making a very positive impact in people's life. And thank you deeply for your service to your community. But yeah, I love to make episodes about the diversity of early Christianity. Also, the diversity of theologies that existed in early Christianity. I just love how dynamic that time period was. Excuse me. And just how creative everyone was. I love Origen. I love Irenaeus. I love Athanasius. I just, the Gnostics, the Valentinians or whatever. I love reading about their theologies, and I don't have to agree with them or even understand them half the time, to recognize their unique spiritual and intellectual genius. And it's always a great honor for me to be able to present that information. And it's also easy for me because I don't have I have a dog in the fight, I suppose. So, so it's a lot of fun. But again, thank you for serving your community in the way that you do. Laura, how do you gain expertise with so many historiographical traditions? I'm a medievalist by training and find the older texts are beyond me. How do you stay abreast of such a broad range? Um, I don't know, and I don't know that I do a very good job of it, frankly. I mean, you can tell where my strengths are. I'm much more capable working in the Middle Ages and working in the early modern period than I am working, way back in Akkadian times. Even late classical stuff can be quite challenging, especially with a lot of the new scholarship coming out about ritual practice and late classic antiquity. So I don't know that I do a great job of it. And my hope is always that I do a good enough job of it that it allows someone else to come back behind me and do a better job at some point. So also just read a lot. I mean, I just got 4 new bookshelves in. I got to build 4 new bookshelves this weekend after I get over the stomach flu. So I'm just like constantly reading, and it just never ends. It's just a constant cycle of reading 3 or 4 books every couple days. I just tore through a new book on the Magi, and we'll be doing an episode about the Magi next week. So it's just doing that. So I don't know that I do a great job of it. I hope I do a passable job of it. I hope I do a good enough job of it. Doesn't misinform people. And so I would just say that that's kind of how I operate. Um, all right. Scroll down a little bit. Comment from Honograph that you're reconstructing the Yates thesis after he deconstructed it. Am I reconstructing it? Did Honograph say that in the talk? Maybe. Um, I don't know that I'm reconstructing it. What I will say is, I think that Yates overstated her thesis. Sure, I think that take Honograph's point about that, and I don't think there's a tradition there. But what I would say is there's an intellectual milieu and there's a hermetic discourse that is somewhat coherent, and that intellectual discourse did have an impact on the trajectory and and part of the escape velocity of modernity. It played a part. Now, is Giordano Bruno the most important linchpin person in that? No, Gates is just wrong about that. But as a discourse, the Hermetic discourse, in addition, obviously, to Protestantism, which plays a much bigger role in that process, I would say that that is part of a discourse that did propel us into modernity. Now, I don't think Yates says that. I think Yates overstates it. And again, this is just a slight difference, I think, the way that how Walter and I see these intellectual movements. I tend to be much more Hegelian, and I tend to read history in a much more Hegelian, though Marxist way. And even from private conversation with Walter is much more interested in historical contingency. And I think he's right to be interested in those moments of contingency and to see so much of this stuff as contingent. I think we come at it with different methodologies, and we come at it with I think we come out a lot closer than people might think. But I'm definitely not reconstructing the Yates thesis. That is not my intention, and I don't want to do that. But again, I am at some level more Hegelianly bent in the way that I read history, and that does make me sound that way. And again, Walter is absolutely correct to focus on the contingency. And the answer is somewhere in the middle. I'm not right about this, and if anyone's right about it, it's Walter. And he definitely ain't me. Walter's done all the hard work. It's if I, again, I have my own position, but if someone were to tell me, like, if I were a betting man, I'm betting on Walter Hanegraaff, not on me. So don't take your final word from me. Take it from Walter. I think you're far better intellectually rigorous to have done that. So. And again, I think I expressed this in the beginning of the Hermeticism video that I got to release. I just admire him immensely. I have such a people like Walter, people like Adam McLean, they changed my life. They made my life better. They gave me something to do in my life. They opened up a world to me and made me love and cherish the things that I do. And I think that with such, with such intellectual integrity. And it's good to have heroes. I think we should have, we should have our heroes and we should praise them and we should have kavod harav. And I really believe in kavod harav, that you give glory to your teachers. Um, because they've earned it. They've done the really hard work. And so insofar as I have anything to say about Hermeticism or the history of all this, it's just commentary on the enormous work that people like Wouter have done, and other scholars as well. But I'll dote on him. Hoping to have him on the channel at some point soon as well. We need to reach out to him. It's just a menschlich dude. All right, let me scroll down here. Thank you, Sherry, for your super sticker. I appreciate your support of the channel. Man, so you guys are so kind. I really appreciate it. Oh, excuse me. All right. Hannah Brown. Oh boy, a Plotinus question. Do you think that Plotinus' view of forms sufficiently settles accusation of the self-predication paradox when it comes to Platonic forms? No. I mean, no, not because what's the right way of putting this? No, because what ends up happening is that he just limits it to 3, and he just waves his hands and says, "Look, you're not going to have forms of forms." Done. I don't think it fixes it. And I think that the evidence that he didn't fix it is that the people that come after him, Porphyry, Proclus especially, they just build out more and more stuff. You got these henads in there, and there's forms of this, and forms of life. You get all these numericalities and all this stuff. I think that what Plotinus thought to do was just basically put, it's like I don't know, like when you have a fire in a pan in the kitchen, you just put the top on it to put the fire out. I think you decided to put the top on it to put the fire out, but I don't think that the logical problem goes away. I don't think it does, and I think the proof of that is Neoplatonism, is how Baroque it gets. I mean, damn, I mean, you read Proclus, Elements of Theology, man, you just get mired down 1,000 henads and all this stuff. I don't think he fixes it at all. And you get variations of it in Ibn al-Arabi, and you get it in the Kabbalah with the Sefirot and all that. No, I think he waves his hands and puts a lid on it, but the lid did not put the fire out. Yes, Graham, I do plan to get to Swedenborg, and the only reason why I haven't is just because the Swedenborg's books are so enormous, and I don't like making episodes on books where on thinkers where I haven't really worked through at least a lot of what they've written. And Swedenborg just wrote so much, and it's so intimidating. So this is gonna be one of those things where I just spend an entire summer or something reading Swedenborg and work that out. What's the story with Kant and Swedenborg? Did Kant have any secret occult tendencies? He did at first. This is the pre-critical period, right? This is the 10 years before he begins to unleash the 3 critiques on us. Yeah, he was really interested in Oettinger and Swedenborg and in spiritual creatures. He was really interested in this, and so skeptical, very skeptical, but very interested. I don't think that he had any sort of secret occult tendencies. I think there's an undercurrent, and my Kant people in the crowd will get really angry at me, but please don't hurt me. I do think there is a mystical dimension of Kant, and I do think that it emerges in the 3rd critique, and I think it emerges in the Sublime. And if you sort of follow some of the footnotes in the Sublime, Chris, again, one of the things that Kant is infamous for is that there's no direct apperception of reality. Reality is a constructed process through the transcendental dialectic, and because it's mediated by the transcendental dialectic, you're never going to get a direct apperception of reality. It just doesn't happen for Kant, except for, I think, in the Sublime. I think that, and again, this is sort of a controversial position for sure, but I think that in morality, there's maybe a direct apperception of the good, and I think that of the beautiful, there's a direct apperception of those that sort of haunt the second and third critiques. And so I do think there's a lot more room for a mystical reading of Kant than often gets pointed out. Now, a lot of the, like I said, all the Kantians in the room are their heads on fire, but I mean, the dude's religious. I mean, God, all this stuff. I think that there's a lot. I think there's a lot more room in there for a mystical reading of Kant than people think. I think that there's a hardcore rationalizing that happens with Kant studies. Um, and I don't know if that's a totally accurate representation of Kant's thinking, nor do I think that Kant has it totally worked out in his own head. And I think you see that conversation he's having with himself primarily in the footnotes, especially in the third critique. All right. This is an interesting question. I've done a short episode about the Abramelin. I think it's a mix. I think that the Abramelin is like every grimoire, it's an accretiatory text. There's clearly Jewish accretions in there, early Jewish accretions, but I think there's also heavily Christian accretions as well. But I'm fairly confident that some aspects of the Abramelin text are authentically Jewish, probably Sephardi, actually, to put a finer point on it. Whether self exists, probably not, but it's a really persistent delusion. So for me, I would say that sufficiently persistent delusions, or you still got to deal with them. Uh, you still have to take them seriously. It's like social constructions. Saying something's a social construction doesn't mean you get to throw your hands up and not do metaphysics. Now you got to do a lot of metaphysics about social constructions. Um, Insofar as something like Buddhism's theory of co-interdependent arising or whatever, that doesn't make it not the case that we can't talk about discrete entities and their parts. And insofar as they are persistent, then they can and should be the object of metaphysical speculation. Um, and so I'm totally fine with saying no. It may be the case that things like selves, mind, for instance, I don't think consciousness exists. I'm an eliminativist about consciousness. And so just because I'm a limitivist about it, the way that you show the truth of relativism is by showing that theories of mind metaphysically don't work. And you have to do the metaphysics. So I'm totally fine with doing um, sort of guerrilla metaphysics on these kind of entities that are have quasi ontological status. It's totally, I don't see any problem with that. Right. That's a great book. The worms and the cheese. Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by hermeticist. Yeah. What you mean by a hermeticist? Well, someone's from Mississippi. Hi, I'm a Mississippi person, White Island person. Uh, hope things are going well in Mississippi. I miss being there. I'm going to be there. I'm going to actually be visiting Mississippi, my hometown, and get to visit my dad and stuff here in a couple of weeks. I'm looking forward to being down there. So tell Mississippi I send my regards. Um, have you discussed with your colleagues about doing travel academic meetups with your content? Yes, we are. This is a thing that we want to do. We desperately all want to do this. The problem is venues, folks. We really want to do something in New York. It's probably not going to happen, at least not as soon as we wanted it to. But venues in major cities are shockingly expensive, and we're not rich people, we're YouTubers, and so trying to find a way to make it fair so that people can come. I don't want to charge a big ticket price so that you can come hang out with me. Who am I? I'm just some guy. Um, but to find some way of making it financially work is just tough. And so we're still in conversations behind the scenes to make it work. I know I'm going to be in New York in April for the book fair. And so I'm going to let folks know where I'll be. And if folks in New York City, the New York City area want to come hang out, I'm totally happy to buy you guys a round of drinks or whatever. But yeah, we want it to happen. I want to do some traveling. Actually, I want to do some on-site, on-site lecturing and teaching and learning. That's actually in Europe with like a class of people, kind of. So that's a direction I really want Esoterica to go in. And I don't know that this is the kind of things that I'm looking forward to in 2024 is really getting some time to think seriously about the direction that I want to take Esoterica. And one of the directions that I really want to take Esoterica in is in-person learning. I really do think that in-person learning is very important. And so I really want to go in that direction, but really thinking through a lot about how that goes. Hey, Marco, consider discussing Freemasonry, its history, philosophy, and its possible esoteric aspects. This is one of the areas where people will be surprised or not surprised. I don't know. I'm woefully ignorant about Freemasonry. I'm woefully ignorant about tarot. I don't know anything about tarot or Freemasonry. Basically nothing. I mean, maybe more than the average man on the street a little bit, but I'm woefully ignorant about them. And so it just comes down to like, can I de-ignorantify myself enough to speak cogently on Freemasonry and something like tarot. Um, I used to also be really ignorant about astrology. Didn't know anything about astrology. It's one of my like absolute um, just black holes of, I should know obviously a lot about astrology. Don't know anything. I corrected that, thank God. Chris Brennan's books and other books, I've really gotten a better grasp on astrology. But it's just going to be like getting the knowledge to do it, Marco. And again, maybe working with Freemason brothers to get some recommendations and filling that knowledge out and doing that learning together. So it's just a place where I'm ignorant, and where I'm ignorant, I don't talk. And that's the reason why I've never covered Freemasonry, why you've never seen an episode on tarot. It's just because that's where my ignorance is. And, like all ignorance, it's a place of darkness, and I got to fill it with a little light. And that just means I got to do more work. So it's a great reminder that I need to be doing that. Need to be doing that work. Need to be doing that work. How do I decide which topics to cover on the channel? It's just literally, I have a list. I have a kind of list right here. I'll just put it in the chat if you want to see it. Some of it I've covered already, but I just have like a running list. And when I get to something, I just do it. I don't know. It's going to let me paste that whole thing in the thing. But yeah, just have a running list. This week I really want to do something Christmassy, so I'll do something on the Magi. So I really want to do an episode on the Magi. So, but yeah, that's basically it. I have a list. I go for the list. I try to prioritize things on the list that I think are really important. Lacunas in history, especially like, for instance, the role of women in esotericism. I really try to make sure there's always a woman episode in the ticket, not because I'm trying to be some rad feminist or something, but because it's just history, and it's a part of history that doesn't get talked about enough, because we assume that history is a bunch of dudes like Napoleon doing stuff, as opposed to like, no, there's lots of really important women and other folks in history. And I really want to make sure that my default is, like everyone's default, is to not see them, is to invisibilize them. And so the way you don't invisibilize women in history is by putting them on your list. So that's why you see episodes like Angela Foligno and stuff. But yes, an episode on Pseudo Dionysius is also in the works as well. Definitely going to be doing that as well. I'm going to, I think when we get closer to releasing the absinthe that I'm working with Detroit City Distillers to make, sometime first quarter, I think, of 2024, I think we'll do some absinthe related distilling content and kind of show you around a still and how to operate one and how to make absinthe, and to show you that I'm putting wormwood in there. It's not fake. It's really real. So maybe we'll do a little hands-on alchemy in terms of distilling. But yeah, I'd love to do that. Mark, thank you, brother. I really appreciate your kind donations to the channel through the years. And thank you as well, and happy holidays to you and to everybody. I mean, we can all use some light this time of the year, and I appreciate it. Yeah, Eccentric Tripper, I agree. Pseudo Dionysius is incredibly profound, and that profundity often gets lost in the fact that the mystical theology is such a short little essay. But there's a lot. That essay is an inch wide and a mile deep. There is a lot going on in the mystical theology, and I really do want to cover that. But again, this is a text that requires a very delicate touch, and I really want to cover that as well. Super important stuff. I will eventually cover Zoroastrianism. Let's Talk Religion has some great episodes on Zoroastrianism. I'll be touching it a little bit this week when I make this episode on the Magi. Although the Magi began to exist prior to the rise of Zoroastrianism, they're eventually hoovered into Zoroastrianism, but the Magi predate them. So we'll be talking about that a little bit as well. All right. I appreciate a lot of the kind words and things in here. This is a great question. Do you think the epistemic tradition of sense that someone like Deleuze outlined in the Logic of Sense, I suppose, it's a great topsy-turvy fun book, as opposed to one of truth or dialectical positivism, can be compatible with a full-fledged materialist position? Sure. Deleuze was a materialist of an exotic kind. but yeah, I think that that you get weird contradictions like he does lay out in the logic of sense, um, and that does. I mean, what you end up with is you can end up landing on a materialism, which I do think Deleuze lands on. You just don't end up with a foundationalism, and I think that's what ultimately drops out of difference and repetition, and what drops out of logic of sense is a radical anti-foundationalism, because if ontology fundamentally is difference and sense is the way that we perceive it, um, then sure, you're going to get an anti. You're going to drop out of that with a hardcore anti-foundationalism. Um, I'm not convinced of that. I think difference and repetition is a work of sheer genius. I prefer it to logic of sense, except for the stuff on the Stoics. I like that stuff, um, but yeah, I think it's compatible. It's just not compatible with the foundationalist materialism, which is the one I'd be more inclined to. I'd be more inclined to. Can you explain your view of what consciousness is or isn't? I think it's a persistent delusion. I don't think it's a thing in itself. I don't think it exists as such. I don't think consciousness exists at all. If you want to know more about my position, then basically I agree with the Churchlands, Paul and Patricia Churchland. They represent Dennett too, to a certain degree, although he can be a jackass. But I basically agree with Dennett and the Churchlands, that whatever consciousness is will basically will be dispelled once we have a complete uh, neuroscience, and so it will cease to function as a viable philosophical concept. So if you want to go read Neurophilosophy, which is a great book by Paul and Patricia Churchland, they are limited materialists when it comes to consciousness, and I tend to agree with them. Yep, some Zoroastrian questions. Yep, I will. Uh, we'll do them. Yeah, that'd be funny to do an episode on the Stylite monks, the guys that sit on top of the pillars for years. Yeah, I wanted to do an episode on early Christian monasticism, but I'm also getting an episode worked up where I'm going to be covering the Therapeutai. I don't know when I'm going to get to them, but soon. And the Therapeutai is a kind of precursor to Christian monasticism. So, yeah, I'll be doing an episode on the Therapeutai at some point soon as well, which is a very esoteric sect of Judaism that we know very, very little about. I mean, they make the Essenes look uh, positively normal. The Therapeutai are so unusual and so secretive. Yeah, thank you, Sixtus, with the wonderful Monos Hieroglyphica, for the super sticker. Um, it's a great question from Mark. Would you consider doing an episode on nothing? Not the Heidegger Sartre existentialist nothing, but the beyond being and the God is not trajectory. I don't know that those are the different. I don't know those are different. Well, Sartre's nothing, but I'm not sure Heidegger's nothing is opposed to that, especially if you think about the later Heidegger. Yeah, I think that would be a great topic. Again, linking back up with Pseudo Dionysius and Kabbalah too, right? Kabbalah is a theology of no thingness, and I love that. It's also how I can be theologically inclined as a Jew, is because Kabbalah says no. Any conception you can have of God, and any conception you have of God, is inherently idolatrous, because God is no thingness, and God is nothing, and any conception of God as a something is inherently idolatrous. And therefore, to be in the tradition of Abraham, the idol smasher, one must smash every idol, and that especially includes idols that we build in our own heads. Those are the most dangerous idols, and therefore, my radical materialism, my radical atheism, opens the door to a radical mysticism of no thingness, of Ein Sof, and the mystical trajectory of what we might call atheology. So I'm very open to that, and totally happy to live and work in that world. It's a world I feel very comfortable with, and I appreciate. Um, what do you make of Slavoj Žižek's analysis? I love it. I mean, it's entertaining. I don't know if he's right, but anyone that smart and that clever that can make me laugh and like really uncover, I think, important truths about how ideology operates in the most silly ways, like toilets and stuff, or TV. It's the same thing. Yeah, I like it. Um, um, I like Nihil Unbound. Yeah, I like Zizek. I think he's clever I think the debate he did with Jordan Peterson was positively awful. That's not surprising with JP there, but I like it. It's clever. It's fun. It's a kind of philosophy that I wish there were more of, where philosophers are being smart and being funny and being like clever in a very Freudian way, where you can't tell what's uncomfortable and funny because it's true, or just like uncomfortable and funny because it's just uncomfortable and funny. And I think Zizek does a great job of that. I'm going to do an episode on Mani. That's definitely coming. I have the Kephalaya just right over here. So I'm going to be doing an episode on the Kephalaya, which is basically a textbook of Manichaeism that I'll be getting at some point soon. Am I only interested in Western occultism? I'm not only interested in it. I just only have that expertise. There's tons of amazing philosophy in India. In fact, that entire shelf over there is just Indian and Chinese philosophy. I know a little bit about Indian and Chinese philosophy, but I don't have the intellectual ability to cover something like Shingon Buddhism. I just don't have the languages. I don't have the background, and so it's not a question of interest or priority, or absolutely never a question of judgment or value. It's just about my own ignorance, what I have expertise in and what I don't, and when I don't have expertise, I do my best not to open my mouth. Stuart, hey Stuart, book 2 of Abramelin is a later edition. It's a great question. I don't know. I had to think about it more. There's a part of me that kind of, folks may know, Stuart's a great scholar. He's written a great article about the Abramelins coming out, maybe out, Stuart, if you want to link it below. And we're going to be talking about the work at House Boleskine at some point, maybe in January. It's all the work that's going on at House Boleskine. I don't know. There's a part of me that wants to do like a hardcore source criticism of Abramelin and say, like, this is what I think is early. This is what I think is Jewish. This is what I think is not. Like literally going through Bible style and like, documentary hypothesis. But I don't know. I don't want to say. I would have to look at it again. That's a great question. But I do think it's a highly accretionary text. I do think that there's a lot of stuff gathered together there that isn't coterminous. But exactly where one part fits into another, I had to think about that. But looking forward to talking with you, Stuart. And it was great to meet you a couple years ago over in Ireland. Yeah, Çatalhöyük. Yeah, I'm going to be covering it. I'm going to be doing an episode on there's a symposium that folks may know about. It involved archaeologists, religious studies people, theologians, and they were all on site at Çatalhöyük for 3 years, all looking at the same data, all looking at the same digs, all looking at the same everything. And they published a volume where they all came away and basically said, this is kind of where we land on what we think was going on there in terms of religion. And it's just a breathtaking piece of scholarship, just breathtaking. And again, it's sort of a really important update to the Book of the Leopard that was put out a few years ago. But yeah, I want to do an episode on Çatalhöyük and another episode eventually on Göbekli Tepe, and talk about sort of where scholarship is on the religiosity of at least Neolithic religion there in Anatolia, Southeast Anatolia. So super fascinating, super important stuff. It's an interest that both Andrew Henry of Religion for Breakfast and I both share. What prompted your journey? Just intellectual curiosity, folks. It was never like a mystical vision, or it was never a moment where I was like, okay, now I have to go study esotericism. It was an interest I had since I was a kid. I used to love watching scary movies. I still do. I used to love watching Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, and I In Search of Leonard Nimoy, and those questions about Atlantis and Bigfoot and aliens and or whatever, Oak Island, all that stuff just absolutely fired my imagination. And as I got older, I got more and more skeptical, but I never lost interest in that material. And ultimately, what I saw was that a lot of it was just being badly misrepresented online. And I started Esoterica just to correct that to what small degree I can, I suppose. And it's just a passion project. I just love it. It's just fun. It's intellectually important. It's part of our historical, spiritual tradition in the West that is has been repressed and suppressed and has not been taken seriously. And I think that's a real mistake, and it just does. It's bad history. And insofar as that is true, I want to do my small part, my very small part of making this material accessible, doing it in a rigorous way, and thank God I'm able to do it because of support of many of the fine folks that are in this chat. So that's what prompted my journey. It's just intellectual curiosity, and I'm very lucky that often the intellectual curiosities of kids are put out by adults. Frankly, adults are really profoundly malevolent in this way of stomping down the imaginations of children and pretending that that imagination and curiosity are bad, and part of the journey to adolescence and ultimately to adulthood is the extinguishing of curiosity and imagination. This is a very evil thing that adults do to children, and I'm very lucky that in a lot of ways it didn't happen to me in the way that I saw it happen to a lot of other people, and I kept that interest, and I never let it go, and I kept studying it and kept studying it, and now I'm here. So that's kind of how I got here to doing esoterica. Um, don't let Never kill the imagination, never stamp out the imagination of anybody else, especially kids, and never do it to yourself. Chase your curiosities until the very, very end. Flame your curiosities, feed them. They're the best part of most of us, of the things that we are intellectually interested in. They're a great part of us. They're an asset, and I'm very lucky that I have the ability to do all this with all these esotericism stuff with you fine people and make it accessible. It's absolutely a blessing. All right. Do you think the Torah and the Tanakh were originally written in Hebrew or the Septuagint first? No, the Hebrew definitely first. I mean, there are sections of the Torah that are like Bronze Age. The Song of Devorah, probably very late, maybe late Bronze, very early Iron One. So yeah, some of the sections of the Bible, some of the sections, the Song of Devorah, the Song of Sea, maybe even some of the Psalms were probably written at a time period where they may have been still writing in linear A and B. So no, I don't think that the Greek came first. That's silly. Yep. Focus on the Middle Ages. In your research, you've touched on Sumerian Akkadian. Yeah, I have. I've done a whole episode on the Mockley ritual. Yeah, I've definitely got into the world of Sumerian Akkadian stuff. In fact, where is it? Right here. Hold on. If you want a great book about just that kind of material, I just picked it up because I love Akkadian stuff. This is a great book if you're interested in ancient Near East stuff, called Before the Muses. This is just a huge anthology of Akkadian literature. It's a massive anthology of Akkadian literature from very early Akkadian all the way up to the really recent Neo-Assyrian stuff. So, oh yeah, I have a deep interest in this material. In fact, the other great book, there's the literature of ancient Sumeria, and the Treasuries of Darkness, which is the great collection of Sumerian literature. So no, I have a deep interest in this material. I can read some Akkadian, read some Ugaritic. Definitely want to continue working on that material. Absolutely. Have any of your work been found considered credible? I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by credible. Like, I think people peg me as a relatively reliable source. I try to be a pretty reliable source if you're talking about me. But in terms of whether Enochian magic is real or whatever, I think you should ask a practitioner. I'm not the one to answer that. That's beyond my wheelhouse. That's beyond my wheelhouse. That's a good question for practitioner folks. Do you think Nietzsche really lost his mind? Yeah, sadly, he had some kind of mental breakdown, may have caused by syphilis or something. But yeah, the last few years of his life, Nietzsche really suffered. And even more sadly, his evil ass sister and her husband really manipulated some of his works that he wrote in this state. They became the will to power, what we know in English as the will to power, and really brutalized Nietzsche's final works in a way that is unforgivable. His evil sister, may her name be blotted out. I really feel bad for Nietzsche. I'm not a fan of Nietzsche myself, but the man does not deserve to be misrepresented, especially when he's made vulnerable, and he certainly was. Hey, hey, Akasha Record from Reddit. Wonderful, the Enochian. Yes, yes, I will get to the watchtowers, and I will get to the parts of the Earth system as well. Yep. So yeah, I'm definitely not done with Enochian magic. I don't think I'm gonna cover any Golden Dawn stuff, but I will get to the later magical developments that happen primarily in the two cotton appendices. So absolutely, trust me, I'm not giving up on John D. Although I will say, and again, I don't like to toot my own horn, but I will say that I really have really enjoyed doing the D work that I've had from the Book of Soiga to the three-part analysis of the Monas Hieroglyphica, then to the Enochian stuff, really working our way very methodically from the Heptarchia Mystica all the way up now. I think my video, the last one, is on the calls and the system of the Aethers, and I love making those videos. They're a pain in the neck to make because they're so technical with grids and stuff. So there's a lot of ways to make a mistake in them. But yeah, it's tough, but I really enjoy them, and I appreciate the support I get over at the Enochian subreddit. I appreciate that. Thank you. But yes, I will get to the watchtowers and the parts of the Earth system. Um, what do you think about esoteric practices and views being utilized in LGBTQI plus liberation? Hey man, LGBTQ folks have suffered enormous persecution over the millennia and centuries, and whatever tools they deem fit for their liberation, and for me being an ally in their liberation, I'm all about them using whatever tools they see fit. So oppressed peoples of the world, whether it's working class people, or LGBT folks, or Gazans, all those people should use whatever tools they have within, again, within moral limits to liberate themselves, and us for all to co-liberate each other. So sure, I'm all about it. Am I taking on graduate students? No, I don't have any funding for you. I would love to have an intern. I need an intern, but I can't. I mean, I don't. At this point, I can't pay you. I desperately need an intern or a research assistant or just a assistant of some kind. But no, I'm not taking on any graduate students at this time. I don't have any funding. I just don't have the time, frankly, to read dissertations and master's thesis. I'm happy to point people in directions and help in ways I can, but at this point, I don't have the capacity to either take on outside reading positions. I don't have any money to give you. I'd love to, though. I'd love to. Um, hey, Colleen. Yeah, I'm still truly humbled by, and again, I don't like to think of you guys as fans. I don't think it's like a fandom to me. I think we're all here working together in a journey of learning, and that's when I say learn with. I'm not here to teach you anything. You can learn from the things that I'm presenting, but ultimately we're doing this together. I'm presenting you information, and you're giving me feedback about what you want to learn about, and we're working together in this. So I think of it as co-learning, much more so than me being some guru preaching from the mountaintop. God forbid. Chas v'shalom. Um, but I'm still very humbled by the people that support this channel and hang out with me and learn with me. Um, it's amazing, and I'm deeply grateful for it. Deeply grateful for it. Did you ever consider covering Rudolf Steiner? Probably not anytime soon. Mostly because he's so late. Esoterica, basically the cutout point for Esoterica is somewhere in the 19th century. I don't know where. But I don't tend to cover much 20th century stuff, and Steiner is very much an important figure in the 20th century. Again, Dr. Angela Puka has covered Rudolf Steiner in some episodes. If you want some Steiner content, um, it's absolutely worth covering. He's important, but I'm probably not going to get to him not anytime soon. But again, if you want some Rudolf Steiner content, Dr. Angela Puka has you covered. Um, Was Osman Spare a legitimate occultist or experimental artist only? I don't think he was only anything. The dude was a genius, and he was many things at once. He was a plurality of people. I have a deep respect for Spare, and have an episode about him. But yes, I can't say legitimate because I'm not in the game of legitimating people. But he was an ingenious spiritual practitioner, and if the occult was the way you would categorize that, then sure. Absolutely. Also, I think the boundary between aesthetics and religiosity is very blurry at times. And I think that anyone who claims they can draw a clear line between what is merely aesthetic, and what is religious, no, they're deeply interrelated. Deeply interrelated. What are my thoughts on the angelical language? I think I've shared most of my thoughts on the angelical language on the episodes I've made about it. I've also written an article it's basically my take on what I think happened. I still basically agree with that article, but I think it's interesting and fascinating. I don't know that it's the result of angels talking to people or supernatural creatures of any kind, frankly, but it is very interesting and deserves careful study by people like semioticians and um, and linguists. So and that's the kind of work I've done when I've covered it. So you can check out my episodes on that. Studies of the arcane ever conflict? Sorry, folks. With your Jewish beliefs? No, not really. No, not really. I mean, my own theology, as much as I have one, is not really wrapped up in Kabbalah. Although, again, this goes back to aesthetics and logic and stuff. I'm very taken by some fields of Kabbalah. I think I've said this earlier in the live stream. I don't like Lurianic Kabbalah. I just don't like it. I like Cordovero. I think Cordovero is the best Kabbalist that's basically ever lived, and I like the Cordoveran system. It's also because that's a predilection of mine um, that has everything to do with what kind of personality I have, and so I think Cordovero is a far better Kabbalist, and I think his Kabbalah is a far better form of Kabbalah. Now, again, do I really have a dog in this fight? No, not really. But if someone were to ask me, like, who's your favorite Kabbalist? Who do you agree with more? I would say I don't really agree with the Kabbalah. But if I had to pick a system that I thought was like good, I would definitely have picked Cordovero's system and not Isaac Luria's. What sign am I? I think I'm an Aquarius. I think I'm an Aquarius. I was born on February 10th. Born on February 10th. All right. All right, folks. I'm starting to run out of gas a little bit. Like I said, I'm dealing with a little bit of a stomach virus, so um, my energy levels are dropping a little bit. But let me get to the last few questions. And again, don't ask folks. Don't send any super chats um, um, at this point because I don't want to miss you if in case I have to sign off. Hey Ryan, the way it works is you email me, we make a date, and we talk. And that's kind of it. It's not much more complicated than that. I've not been entirely vigilant about making sure it happens this past semester because this past semester has been just beast. Um, but I'm going to have a lot more expansive space to make sure that kind of stuff happens in the spring. So that's basically the long and short of it. Um, all right, a couple more last questions. Can the occult or being a scholar result in mental loneliness? Not only can it, but it does. um, again, I couldn't tell you guys just how. And again, this is a thing that you should know about all your favorite content creators. I don't care who they are, whatever content creators that you support. Just know that it can be lonely. Content creation can be very lonely. You study alone, you script alone, you shoot alone. You're just in a room with a camera and there's no one there. And, you know, um, just know that mental health challenges are a very real thing for content creators, both in terms of burnout, but also in terms of loneliness. And so anytime that you want to show some support to your content creators just with a kind word or a kind message or whatever, you know, it really does mean a lot. It means a lot to me when I get really thoughtful messages on comments or just people to send a nice message on my website because it can be pretty lonely work. Now, it's very privileged work too. I'm not going to lie. I get to make YouTube content for my job. That's very privileged. I'm not going to deny that. But every privilege comes with peril, and one of the perils that comes with YouTube content creation is the loneliness. And that's why I love doing these live streams. It's great to hang out with you guys, at least in some kind of virtual way. So yeah, show some love to your favorite content creators. Send them a kind message. Send them a kind word in the comments, because because it can be challenging. Yeah, thank you, Savorg. I appreciate that. The super chat. Yeah, and I'm glad that again, I'm just extremely grateful that you guys support me in the way that you do. It's a big honor. Um, Stuart, hey man, don't tempt me. Don't make promises that you can't keep. If I could again, if I could have an Esoterica in-person learning seminar at House Beleskin, um, if that could be made to happen, man, I would jump. I would jump over the Atlantic Ocean to do that. So absolutely, if you guys can make, we can make a sort of Esoterica Beleskin House con happen. You best believe I'd jump for joy. So Stuart, don't threaten things, man. That would be amazing. That'd be positively amazing. Um, all right, okay, folks. I'm sorry. Let me scroll back down. Um, Oh wow! All right, thank you. That's a generous offer. Love to come to Salt Lake City. Back to Salt Lake City. It was great. It's beautiful there. Absolutely beautiful there. Um, yeah, Hurrian occultism. Wow, this got really deep really fast. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I know a little bit about Hurrian just as a language and a little bit of them as a culture. But yeah, I'd be curious to look more about Hittite and Hurrian religiosity. And the Hittites are a fascinating group of people in terms of their religiosity, in that they really love to kind of collect religious rituals from nearby people. I think I mentioned just recently that I think Kalsmaic, it's a brand new Indo-European language discovered just now at Hattusa, because the Hittites were kind of collecting religious rituals in languages other than their own. So yeah, that's a fascinating topic. Absolutely, love that stuff. All right, folks, let me scroll down and see if it's the last few questions, and I'm gonna get some rest before Shabbat comes in because it's just about Shabbat's going to come in pretty soon. David Hume was definitely not into the occult. When I think of someone who was like the most anti non-occult dude in history, David Hume comes pretty fast to the top of that list. Oh, David Hume. Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate this. A very kind comment donation. Yeah, Hanukkah's wrapping up. When Shabbat falls, the last day of Hanukkah will conclude, and but we'll get Shabbat. So, what greater blessing is there than rest? And everyone deserves rest, and I certainly need some. So yeah, I should definitely do that. So get some Shabbat. Yeah, Idol Smasher. Yeah, there should be a Jewish black metal, Abrahamic black metal. That would really make Varg and his buddies angry. Anytime I can, I can poke a hole, I can poke Varg. That's fun. Oh, Varg. Um, all right. Yeah, Amorite beliefs. Amorites were like near neighbors of the Israelites. They were one of the many ites that lived in that region. Um, who was their god? Their big god. Now his name is slipping my mind. Oh, I can't remember the main god for the Amorite pantheon. Oh wow, it's a brain fart. That's what happens when you get sick and do a live stream. I can't remember what was his name. It's gonna kill me unless I look it up. Oh, it was a Dagon. Was that the big one? Maybe I'm thinking of the Edomites, what their big god was. Maybe it was Dagon. I don't remember. Yes, but yeah, well, yeah, I'd love to get into sort of the other ites that lived around those places, around the Israelites. Um, this is a great question. Julian Jaynes' theory that consciousness is very recent. This is the bicameral mind stuff. I love that stuff. I don't think it's true. Um, I want it to be true. It's one of those theories that I don't think it's true, but I want it to be true. Um, I love it, and I don't think he thought it was true either. I think he sort of basically the book is a big thought experiment, and it's not very scientific, frankly. Sort of like I have an idea, let me go try to find it everywhere in history. It was just like the conspiracy theory style doing of history. But I love it as an idea. I'm pretty unconvinced of it as a reality. Um, um, all right, I'll scroll down and get a couple more questions, and then hey man, yeah, Stan Trell, everyone, the modern hermeticist. Definitely need to go subscribe to his channel. Yeah, I was actually just mentioning you about some medieval Hermetica, sort of the book of the 21 philosophers and all that stuff. I'm really looking forward to your translation coming out, Dan. We should work together on something soon. I hope the semester is wrapping up well for you, that you're doing some teaching. Also be curious to see how your heresy class went. I hope that syllabus I sent you was of some use. But Dana Trelv, everybody, the Modern Hermeticist, absolutely fine channel. Definitely go subscribe to his channel if you have not. And Dan, we should catch up. We should work on something together. All right, let me get down to the bottom here. Yes, the channel symbol does have a meaning. You can check it out on my website. Just go to justinsledge.com and look at the FAQ, and I explain what's going on in the symbol. All right. Let me get a couple more. Yeah, I know a little bit about Mage of the Ascension, but yeah, I know it is a role-playing game, sort of in the Vampire the Masquerade universe, I think, but I've never played it. I'm more of a hardcore D&D guy. All right. Let's see here. Never give up on the buried treasure. Absolutely not. Never. This whole channel is just an elaborate excuse for me to find buried treasure, folks. That's what's the secret. The secret of Esoterica is just an elaborate excuse for me to find and talk about buried treasure all the time. That's the secret esoteric meaning of what's going on here. It's just about buried treasure. All right, folks. I think that's getting down to the end of the questions. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. Yep, definitely going to do an episode on the magic of early Mormonism. Absolutely going to do that. I think the prevalence of bull cults around the ancient world is real easy. It's food. I think that it's like taboo replacement in food. These are very powerful animals. Aurochs are very powerful animals. I think you take, you want to imagine some real powerful thing, you take something like an Auroch and you worship it. So yeah, I don't know if they're bull cults, but I think representing your god, especially a fertility god, or just a powerful god in general, if you want to go to badass animal in the ancient Near East, well, basically bulls are it. So I think that basically explains it, at least to some degree. Yeah, thank you, Kat Shawick. In Gnosticism, the Baoth is the Old Testament God. He created the archons. Do you think Jewish mysticism disregards this? Again, yes and no. I mean, there's also obviously there's no art, there's no there's no Yalda Baoth in the Kabbalah, but you do have Sitra Achra. You do have a malevolent co-creator of reality in the 13th century Kabbalah. Now, I don't think that's actually reaching back to ancient Gnosticism the way that maybe Gershom Scholem does. But yeah, I think that it survives at least in some forms, and somehow. But I'm going to be doing an episode just on Yalda Baoth here at the beginning of the year. M. David Libwa has written the best book, in my opinion, on how this idea developed. His book is called The Evil Creator, and it's without a doubt the best book that I've seen on the origins of Yalda Baoth and malevolent demiurge traditions, which is what I would prefer to call Gnosticism, frankly. It's a bit more in the mouth, but I would check out M. David Litwa's book on the Evil Creator if you're interested in demiurge stuff. And I'll be making an episode about that at some point soon. Don't send any more super chats. I put some Rage Against the Machine on. I do like the fact that that song, like whatever it's, and there's the name of that. I can't remember the name of the song now. But that song's now a Christmas song because they in England apparently they can vote on what is going to be the number one Christmas song, and for many years it was always the same like boy bands that made the Christmas song, and people got super tired of it, and so they voted in Rage Against the Machine, and so they had to play Rage Against the Machine's that song. I can't remember the name of it now. Those enforcers are the same with Burn Crosses. They had to like play it as a Christmas song, and I love the fact that that is now a Christmas song. So anytime I request Christmas music, I'm going to request some Rage Against the Machine. Hi, Laren. Aaron, yeah, you did get here a little late. I'm just about to wrap up, but let me just publicly express some further thanks to Aaron for his contributions to all the episodes that I've done on Enochian magic and language. Aaron, I was just praising you earlier about how lucky the world is to have scholars who do the hard work of getting into esoteric texts like the Enochian literature and really mining all that stuff out so people can understand it. Duquette as well, Milo Duquette. So just want to say, express my public appreciation again for you, Aaron, and the work that you do. All right. Where'd I go to university? I went to a really small liberal arts college university in Mississippi, and then I went to the University of Amsterdam, and then I went to the University of Memphis. And why the University of Memphis is because it's one of the only universities in the country that does both continental and analytic philosophy. It is a multidisciplinary philosophical school, so you have to learn both continental and analytic philosophy, which I'm very very pro. I don't think you should be able to talk about the other of the otherness and Levinas without you being able to convert that into like a formal argument. So I say that, but you doesn't have to be. Not everything has to be formalized. I'm just really about formalization. All right. All right. Last couple of questions before I. Yeah, Ninth Gates watch party. That'd be pretty fun. All this cover all the stuff that's in these old books. Be fun. All right, a couple more questions. I scroll down. Sorry, folks, I'm skipping you. I'm just, like I said, I'm kind of fading. This like stomach virus or whatever is definitely is getting the best of me. Oh, the heresy class is coming up in the winter. I'd love to see your syllabus, Dan, if you want to send it to me. I bet everyone would love to see the syllabus. Who doesn't want a heresy class? It's great. All right, last couple questions. No, it's not Bulls on Parade. It's not Bulls on the Christmas song is not Bulls on the Parade. It's Killing in the Name of. That's what it is. See, I can't remember the name of the Amorite god, and I can't remember the name of Rage Against the Machine songs. It's not firing on all cylinders, folks. Thank you, Drew. I appreciate that. No one knows. No one's known for a long time, since the Second Temple period. Yeah, appreciate you, Alex. I appreciate the donation. Yes. All right. A couple more. Yep. Thank you, Eric. You guys are so kind. I'm interested in apologetics. I mean, I like reading anti-heresiological tracts. I mean, I like to read Irenaeus as much as I like to read Valentinus. Sure. I mean, if you make a good argument as to why you think God has to be three persons and one God or whatever, that's fantastic. I love apologetics. I love apologetics. Oh, nice. Yeah, thanks, Dan. I hope that folks like the Irenaeus and Cathar videos. And those Cathar videos make people real angry. Like I was basically accused of like Holocaust denial. People really, really did not like those Cathar videos. They're like, "How dare you say that the massacre at Béziers didn't happen?" I'm like, "That's no one saying that." And so yeah, people really misread those and really disliked those episodes. The Cathar episodes were not well received by some people. Maybe it's the tourism bureau of Languedoc hiring people to leave mean comments about my Cathar videos. Last one. What's your favorite book? Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, without any doubt. I'd trade the entire Torah for Kohelet. Kohelet is one of the most book that has helped me and been with me at the best and worst parts of my life. Ecclesiastes is absolutely one of my favorite books of all time. It is my favorite book of all time. It's just breathtaking in its wit and severity and priority. It's Ecclesiastes, Kohelet's fantastic. Also, it's wonderful to read in Hebrew. It's a fantastic book to read in Hebrew, and it's also you get to read it on one of my favorite Jewish holidays, um, and Sukkot. So you sit in the sukkah and you read about the vanity of all things, and it's just it's a vibe. It's a vibe. All right, folks. I appreciate you all. I just want to again say thank you a lot. Thank you for putting up with me. I usually go about a couple hours on these live streams, but I can definitely feel my energy levels dropping. I need to get some electrolytes or something in me. But yeah, let me just say again, I think that cultivating a gratitude practice is absolutely one of the keystones of, to me, a happy life. Cultivating gratitude and cultivating realistic expectations. And I just want to again express how deeply grateful I am for the audience I have. I'm very deeply grateful for the colleagues I have, people like Dan and Angela, people like Aaron and Marco. Um, I'm deeply appreciative of the work I get to do, and the privileges that come along with it, and also the challenges that it has as well. And I just want to express that appreciation to all of y'all. You guys make this possible. You make it worthwhile. You guys being able to hang out with you and getting your comments and things. Um, you help beat back the loneliness that can dominate this job. And I just want to express just how thankful I am for all of y'all. For super thanks for sharing videos, for talking about them, for leaving kind comments. Everything adds up to what is, in my experience, having a fantastic job. I get to serve a community that inspires me, and I get to do it in a way that isn't shackled to any kind of agenda. It's just me, and I get to do that, and I get the feedback from you all, and I appreciate that. So let me just again express my deep gratitude for the fans of this channel, and yeah, I'm gonna go get ready for some Shabbat. I'm gonna rest. I'm gonna get my energy levels back up, and again, if you observe the Sabbath, I hope you do it in great peace, and I hope that if you don't, I hope you also find peace because you deserve it. Everyone here and everyone in the world deserves it, especially in these dreadful times of war in many places. So, um, all right, everybody, thank you again so very much for hanging out with me. Look forward to an episode next week on the Magi, and more. Here's to more in 2024. We got a lot coming. We got a lot coming. Thank you so much.